Hey, everybody. Welcome to Miller's Military Moments, where I bring you unfiltered stories of real military service members from across the globe. And of course, I'm your host, Jason Miller, Master Sergeant retired. I'm so excited to be here today that I could just let out a big old Ric Flair woo if I thought it was gonna, if I thought it wouldn't damage my microphone. I just love doing this, love bringing you all these stories, sharing my friends and teammates stories, and today is just no different. It's always really exciting to do this, and I just having so much fun. So thanks everybody for tuning in and hanging out with me, and shoot Grant when we do our co-hosting show, and all of my other friends and teammates that have come on. So I am excited. It's a lot of fun, and thanks for tuning in. So today's show, man, this one really is probably one of the most anticipated shows from people that are aware of my service and time in the Army. And they know maybe some parts of the story, but they don't know all the details. So this one is pretty exciting. And there was a time in Iraq in '06 when I was, flying in the Blackhawks as a crew chief, and I had an opportunity. Well, it was a mission requirement. It wasn't necessarily an opportunity, but I got an opportunity to do the mission. And the mission, part of it was I had to transport Saddam Hussein, yes, while he was still alive, from one place to another, and he was on my helicopter. So before we get into that story, which I know is pretty cool, hey, my call to action, I love doing this. I love doing the podcast. I love helping veterans with our military transition shows. I love what we've got going on with the website. So please head on over there, millersmilitarymoments.com. Check out all the episodes over there. There's blog posts with the episodes and descriptions. There's pictures, there's videos, there's resources for veterans that can help them through transition, through any crisis or anything that they may need. There's veteran-owned businesses that you probably haven't heard of that might be able to provide you with great service or something that you need. And these businesses and people are amazing. So please go check him out over there. There's lots going on the website. And also, hey, check out my Patreon. I mean, I'm not afraid to ask, for you all to come and support me on my Patreon. And I love doing this. And I would love to continue doing this long term. And I've got some goals, coming up with trying to raise, a certain amount of money for things. And yeah, I want a new camera because, hey, I've got, I'm going to start doing a live show like once a month, and I want to get a nice 4K camera, and so that y'all can see my beautiful face on, and so I want to do that. But honestly, right now, that's the best way to financially support me and give me the opportunity to continue doing this, for you all and for me, because trust me, I love it. So I'm having a great time doing it. So yeah, head over to my website, click on my Patreon, and there's several tiers and several layers that you can join. And I would just greatly appreciate your support. You get fan shout outs. I'll announce your name on the show. I'll give you fan shout outs on my social media, and different things like that. You get early access to certain episodes, and other really cool things coming up. So yeah, absolutely. I ask that you head on over there and support me in that way, but check out the website. And then, hey, if anything, go on over to Apple and leave a review for me, or Spotify or Podchaser, leave a review for my podcast. That would be really awesome. It would mean a lot for you to do that. And also, the other thing is, hey, share this with your friends and family if you think that it's worth listening to. If you think that other people want to know what it's like to have served in the Army, or other branches of service, when I bring people on, tell them about it. They can go to my website and listen to the shows right there. That's the best form of marketing, really, is to share this from friends and family, to say, hey, go listen to this show. So there's my call to action today. I love what I'm doing. I'm so excited doing this, bringing you these shows and episodes, and hanging out with you all. So I just do ask for a little bit of support. Head on over to my website, check out the ways that you can support me. So thanks again for all that. I appreciate it. All right, now into the episode. So Saddam Hussein, getting him on my helicopter. And so we put him on my helicopter and we flew away and did our mission. And that was it. So, hey, thanks everybody for tuning in to today's episode. And no, I'm just kidding. There was a lot more to it than that. And I'm going to share some of those details with you. So, prior to actually executing this mission, we do a lot of things by routine naturally as human beings. And when we're flying, we often do that to our detriment, right? So especially when you're flying in a combat zone, you don't want to fly the same routes at the same altitude, the same time of day. Okay, you want to change it up because the enemy can, key in on that and anticipate when you're coming to a certain area at a certain time and possibly with a certain person on board. So we need to change it up. But one of the things that's difficult with that aspect in this particular part of our mission was, and I've told you before, we have, one of our main missions there was, we called it ass and trash. And we were moving people, parts, supplies, all over Iraq. And, we had a lot of helicopters. So really like three times a day, 2 Blackhawks flew what we called the Iron Horse Express. And we were the 4th Infantry Division, and which is the Iron Horse Division. It's an infantry, but we're all mechanized. They were all tanks and Bradleys at the time. So really historically, once they kind of went that route, that's where they developed the Iron Horse nickname. So Iron Horse Express. So that's what we're doing. And really it was like 2 aircraft, and we would go to almost the same forward operating bases, FOBs, like 3 times a day, early morning, afternoon, and then once at night, I think. And it's really probably thinking back 6 or 7, we would leave Taji, which is the north side of Baghdad, and fly and pick up people and then drop them off all along the way to wherever they needed to go. Because the intent was, especially in 06, keep as many people off the roads as possible. So, soldiers have things that they have to do at these different FOBs. And so we've got to get them there, and also, equipment and stuff. So we would fly in and out of these places several times a day. And, really it would typically be like a 2.5 hour, or maybe like 2 hours down, all the way down at the southern end of Baghdad. And then we would get gas in Kalsu. And then we would fly back and hit a lot of the same, routes and same FOBs. But one of the things that we did also during that time was we landed at a place it was known as the courthouse. Well, it was the courthouse. And if you remember, if you go back to 06 and, depending on how much you were paying attention to, world events, and especially what was going on in Iraq, you might have seen Saddam Hussein appear in court. And, he would, when they were having their court proceedings, and he would appear in court. Well, he had to get there somehow. And so we had him in a location where he was being detained. And so we had to get him safely from there to the courthouse whenever he had to appear for court. And the safest way to move anybody around the country, as I was just saying, is through the air. On ground, I mean, IEDs, RPGs, ambushes, especially in the really concentrated areas of Baghdad, were just awful. Okay. I mean, it was terrible. And that was during the surge too. So fighting and the kinetic activity was just, insane, really. And, so we had to figure out the best way to transport him there. So, but whenever we picked him up from his location where he was being detained, if we only landed at the courthouse whenever he appeared in court, because trust me, the local populace knew when he was in court, right? It would get out and they would, go crazy in the streets and do all kinds of, craziness out there. So they knew. So we had to make sure that, one, it was our responsibility to get him there safely. right? So, we were not his judge and jury. The Iraqi people, the Iraqi court system, and you can argue whether that was fair or not, but they were the ones doing all of this. We were just securing him, making sure he was safe, and making sure he made his court appearances, which I know it sounds really crazy that we were doing what we had to do to make him safe and sound. But we did. We treated him as a head of state, actually. And he was not, we didn't have him, hooded or shackled or blindfolded as almost any enemy combatant that gets on our aircraft. They are almost always blindfolded, shackled. You put in handcuffs. I mean, something, right? Like they have to be secured. And we do not want them to be able to see what's going on inside the aircraft. And also, two, we don't want them to get the perspective that we have from the air. So we don't want them looking out. We don't want them to know where they're going, but Saddam was treated as a head of state. So he was not any of those things. But before we get to some of those details, so we have to get them there safely. And in order to, create this, it's almost like an over routine. As I was sharing earlier, we, are creatures of habit. And typically, in a combat zone, if you get in too much of a habit, that's deadly and you will end up paying the price. But in this particular case, we did fly to all these FOBs 3 to 4 times a day. And so what we did was we added a landing at the courthouse in every one of these missions. So I bet we landed at the courthouse 6, 7, 8, maybe even sometimes 10 times a day. Not each mission set. So you have 2 Blackhawks flying a mission set for a few hours. That particular crew might land there twice. And then the next crew that's out doing a different mission might land there 2 more times. So there was never any real routine to know that we only went there when, we brought Saddam Hussein to court. So we were coming in and out of there so often and so routinely that you would never know if there was, a really important person on board or not. And that, of course, that was our plan. We just didn't, obviously we didn't want anybody to know for a lot of reasons. Definitely felt like they would target us for sure. And, if you're familiar with any of the aircraft being shot down in a combat zone, and specifically, I'll go way back to 1993 and Blackhawk Down, and, that movie and book. And if you look at, when the Blackhawk got shot down and it's right in the city center of Mogadishu, it's a lot of bad things can happen very quickly, and not to mention just, our lives, the safety of us, the safety of the people on the ground. But now remember, it's our responsibility to, protect and take care of this important person to make sure he gets to his court appearances on time. Right. So we definitely just do not want anything to happen until the Iraqi court system decides that they want to do something about it. So we flew in and out of there, all the time, at nighttime, daytime, it didn't matter. We flew in and out of there. And our operations section at the higher headquarters did an amazing job of, putting that on our flight manifest so that, we knew when to go in and out, and we would, sit for about the amount of time that it always took for him to get on or get off the helicopter. And so we always made it look like it was the same thing every time. So, typically routines are dangerous, but in this particular case, we needed to be so routine that nobody ever thought any different of when we were flying in there. And end result was we did an amazing job, and we never had any issues coming in there or out of there with him on board or without him on board. So that's the kind of lead up to, picking him up and going in there. So, as I heard this mission was happening, and it had actually, a few other people had already done it. And, different companies. Remember, we were flying our mission set would typically be for 10 days. We would be like on a morning cycle, a regular day cycle. And then 10 days you would be on like noon to midnight. And then for 10 days you'd be on the assault cycle, which was like, 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. And, so depending on what time it happened, which every time was at night, by the way, whoever was on that cycle, that company got it. And then of course, it was a pretty interesting mission. So people were like, I want it, I want it, I want it. And then, so sometimes, first sergeant commander or whatever, we have to be like, hey, let's put this experienced guys on it, or let's give this young guy a chance, to experience something cool, whatever the case was. So I had heard that it had been going on, and, other people had done it. And one of the things that I heard as well is that it was a pain in the ass. And I was like, so what does that mean? And, like how much of a pain can it be? Like, it's just, it's Saddam, you put him on the helicopter, and whatever. So, so when it came time for me to do it, I saw my name on the mission set. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Well, immediately what I noticed was, there was like some instructions for a mandatory briefing up at headquarters for all the crew members. Now, most of the time, the pilots just go up there for, pre-mission briefing, and then they get the information and they share it with us. This was crew chiefs, everybody. We had to go up there like the day before, go through a briefing, and then the day of, we had to go through another briefing. And then there was, we basically talked over actions and upon actions, and, first, second, third, fourth actions upon different scenarios, and to make sure everybody was on the same page to, do this, execute this mission flawlessly. There's a whole lot of eyeballs on you and your team doing this, as high as, at least the Iraq commander, which I think was a three or four star at the time, I'm not sure, but at least a high level general, if not central command with a 4 stars, is watching this mission. And when I say watching, they've got oversight, and certainly they're listening. And when I say listening, radios, and specifically, I know we were talking on the division net. So we were, we're a company aircraft and flying for a battalion. So we're on our company net. We've got our battalion network and brigade network and our division network up, and people are listening, and to make sure that, we're all doing everything correctly and safely, and the mission's going smooth. So, I'm like, oh my gosh. Okay. So I kind of start to see the whole point of, man, this is a pain in the ass. And so then we go through the briefings, and then, so there's a certain way we've got to set up the aircraft, and we've got to, okay, I told you that, Saddam was not hooded or shackled, because we treated him as a head of state, right? But we also don't want him to look around the aircraft. We don't want him to be able to see the cockpit or the front area of the aircraft. We don't want him to be able to see out of the aircraft, minus the crew chief windows, which we just couldn't help because those are open, and our 240 machine guns have to be pointed out, and we're watching everything. So we have to go and find blackout sets and curtains, basically to kind of set up throughout the inside of the aircraft to make sure he can't see out. And the only thing about that is, like, it's not a big deal to set it up, except for, listen, our aircraft, we're an assault battalion, meaning like we're not doing VIPs. We don't need, it's not clean. They're clean-ish, but they're not like sparkling, shiny, like we're putting the infantry guys in, and we're kicking them out on, landing zones, and they're going and doing their mission, and they're coming back muddy and dirty and whatever. And we spray it out, but it's all good. Some, it's not like perfect. So some of those things, like the blackout curtains and the items that VIPs really like, are not really in our aircraft. So, we have to keep moving like some of this equipment back and forth between the companies, whoever gets this mission, right? So, it's like, okay, who's got the blackout curtains, and we have to go and find it. And then you go and find out whatever aircraft you're using doesn't have the Velcro on it because it got tore off, and nobody cared about it because we never used it. Right. So now we've got to go fix the Velcro and get it all squared away. And there's like, like people that I've never seen before come down and inspect the aircraft and make sure it's ready. And I'm like, who are you? Like, I don't even know who you are. And it's some person that works at like, either battalion or brigade headquarters, coming to make sure that it's all good and everything's good to go. And, so, okay. And so there's all these hoops we've got to jump through and to make this mission happen. And, but of course, again, it's so kind of exciting, right? I'm going to see Saddam Hussein, maybe. I mean, I don't know exactly, but well, actually, once we went through the second brief and I found out, I think I might have been on Chalk 1, and I think that was the aircraft we always put them on, or maybe we rotated that as well. So nobody knew the same aircraft. I honestly can't remember. It was a long time ago. But whatever aircraft I was on was the one he was going to be put on. And I was on the particular side of the aircraft that he was going to be coming to. So I knew, I mean, I was essentially going to be assisting him onto the helicopter if he needed assistance, which sometimes it can be, difficult to get in there. And he wasn't young anymore either. I mean, it's, he was old, and it's difficult to get up in these helicopters sometimes. So, yeah, so I knew, he was coming in on my aircraft, and these people are coming down to look at everything to make sure it's good to go. And, so if like normal, like showtime prior to launch was like, I think 3 hours, show to go is what we called it. So, you show up 3 hours prior to actual takeoff time. It could have been 2 hours, but whatever it normally was, it turned into like 4 hours prior to, this mission. And we had to make sure everything was correct. And normally for every 2 aircraft that you have taken off, you have 1 spare. So you have a spare that's identified, you do the pre-flight work on it, you make sure it's ready to go. So in case one of the aircraft break upon, you're trying to launch and start up, you can, what we call a jump. So you have to gather all your gear and go get in that other helicopter, and you can still continue mission. So, but this one, I think we had 2 spares, right? Which again, we have, 30 aircraft total, and we're flying so many hours that many of our meetings, I know I went over this probably a month or 2 ago in one of my previous episodes about how we actually managed to launch as many aircraft and fly as many hours as we did was just incredible. And so this was another example of this. So we have 2 aircraft that are doing the mission, and we still managed to have 2 spares. Plus we were doing all of our other missions that everybody else was flying in our battalion. So it's just, a testament to the people in our unit to schedule aircraft, to maintain aircraft, and have the right people at the right place, performing all their duties. And then, everybody just committing to the team, to make this happen. I mean, this is a really, really important high visibility mission. So, but every mission we took upon that way too. And that's why we performed so well that year. Honestly, I mean, we thought every mission was that important, and we, performed it in that manner. So yeah, so we've got, we had to show up early, get the aircraft ready, get multiple, spares going, crews are in those spares, cranking, making sure they're ready to go. And, a lot of stuff's going on. And so one of the things that when I really started to realize, oh my God, this is a pain in the ass. So a lot of times we have what we call, an execution checklist. So it's just a step-by-step process of something's happening at every time. So let's just say, for example, you start, the letter A is the first thing, right? B is the next step. C is the third step. Okay, this checklist, now total mission time from the time we took off from Taji, picked him up, dropped him off, went and picked up other people at the other location and back, and then back to Taji was less than an hour. Okay, less than an hour, mission complete. This checklist was A to Z, and then I want to say, like, I'm just going to throw out a guess, it was all the way to like double P on the next one. So it was AA, BB, CC. It was like, oh my gosh. And again, on the main radio net that we're talking on is on division net. So the division, brigade, battalion, company, everybody's listening to this. And every time something is happening, that check, that mark is being radioed up. So that's the other thing. It's not just, that we're watching or listening and it's happening. When that item is executed, is completed, whoever is responsible for that makes that announcement on the radio. So, and I'm telling you, every little thing was listed on this checklist. It was, I mean, got in the Humvee, started it. A is complete. B, Blackhawks have turned on, blades turning. C, crew chief put a seatbelt on. I mean, it wasn't exactly that, but you get the point, right? Like, I mean, it was just so detailed, almost overly detailed, but I don't know that I can really say that because we were successful in every one. So I don't even want to admit that it's over detailed because we were very successful in every one. So nothing bad ever happened. So as we're in the aircraft and we're just listening and focusing, on all those calls, plus trying to do our part, right? We're trying to fly and crew an aircraft. So the pilots are flying, we're crewing, we're still trying to do our normal job, airspace surveillance and making sure everything's good to go while we're listening to all of these cues and these checks and things that are happening, on the ground somewhere else. And, and then we're also listening in case something goes wrong and we have to make adjustments to the mission. So, all this is happening. And it's like, we're like 4 hours into this thing and we haven't even taken off from Taji and I'm tired. I'm like, I am so exhausted already and we haven't even picked them up, So anyway, we get to this point, we take off, we, land at the place. And so we land there and I get out like normally, like when you have passengers come on, you typically, get out of the aircraft, you open up the door, who's coming on. You like if you're checking the manifest, you make sure that they know they're getting on the aircraft and where they're going. But of course, this instance, like, so when we land, you can see like it is a whole different, just atmosphere on the ground there. It's dark, it's at night, and there's all kinds of security elements there providing security. So I get out and I'm standing there and I open up the door and we've already rehearsed this and talked about this. We're going to put him in the front 3 seats, of the aircraft. And so we have 11 seats in the Blackhawk. And the plan is, so they have 9 infantry guys, 9 of our American soldiers are guarding him, are protecting him, and providing him security. The 10th person is his lawyer and the 11th person is him. So they are going to come, I think half get on the aircraft first, half the infantry come and get on the aircraft first. And then he comes to get on and then the other half kind of behind him. And, a lot of times these guys, listen, putting on these seatbelts in the Blackhawk, if you're not used to it, it's a pain. That is a pain in the ass too, right? So that's part of our job as crew chiefs. We've got to help them get the seatbelts on. And plus when it's dark in there, it's terrible. These people are trying to put these seatbelts on. Trust me, we had many a laugh throughout the whole year, crewing with these people in their seatbelts, right? It's comical, but we always made sure they were taken care of. Okay. So no crew chiefs or passengers were ever hurt in the making of our humorous actions. So the infantry guys get on and here he comes. And listen, I mean, I'm not going to deny, like my heart definitely starts racing. And I'm just like, this is unreal that this man, the, former president or whatever you want to call him, dictator of Iraq, one of the main reasons we're there or hunting for weapons of mass destruction or whatever it was we were there for, is here. And he's getting ready to get on my aircraft. I mean, he's 3 feet from me. And so I have my shield is down and also my face mask. So he cannot see my face at all. And I have all my gear on and I'm standing there and, waving people, to the aircraft. And when he gets up to me, it is just surreal, having this person next to you, knowing, how really bad of I don't want to say person, but, leader, could be person, to how many people's lives were destroyed because of actions he's done over the last 20, 30 years, however long he's been in control there. And so And I'm now here having to fight a war because he's here and, wouldn't give up his weapons of mass destruction, supposedly, or whatever the case is. So, I'm like angry. And then I'm just like, holy, this is crazy. I cannot believe he is standing here. And, so you would think that this man would also be, I don't even know. I anticipated, I thought he would be like almost apologetic, um hey, forgive me, you know just in that kind of mindset, but he was not. The other thing, he was arrogant, and he had an unlit cigar that he was chomping on. And again, he was not handcuffed, he was not blindfolded, he was not shackled, nothing. He had his unlit cigar. He was defiant as ever. He was angry at us. And I have no idea what he was saying, but he was pointing his finger at me and, probably saying some really bad things about me. I have no idea. But I'm talking on my, through my helmet, my mic, to the crew. I'm like, look at this guy. Like, what? Like, can I just punch him right now? Like, I was getting angry, and I was like, dude, I want to, don't even look at me like that, guy. And, of course, everybody's like, do it, but not really. I mean, talk about getting in trouble. Holy smokes, I'd probably still be in jail. But you know, I was blown away. I was blown away by his defiant attitude, up to that point of his just, he was still angry at us and blaming us, is what I felt like. I have no idea what he was saying, actually. So I don't know. I just felt that. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, this is just crazy. So, well, now I've got to get him on the helicopter. So we've got it, but he's used to this. I mean, he's done this before, so it's not new to him. He knows the routine. And get him on the helicopter. He sits in the middle seat of the front three seats, that are facing forward, and his lawyer sits next to him. And then, so he was, when I'm facing out of my crew chief window, he's really kind of just behind me to my left. And what's interesting is, my pistol, how it sits in my gear is, it's attached to my gear, and it's pointing, behind me and kind of down. So almost in his direction, really. So of course we were joking, and I got on the mic and I was like, man, I could just pump like 3 into him right now and just throw him out the window in the streets and let the people have them. And they were like, you do it, not really. But yes, we all thought, man, that would be so awesome. But then we were like, no, of course we'd get, in so much trouble. But it was just, I think my thoughts and feelings would have been different if he wouldn't have been so arrogant and, so defiant looking and seeming, towards me. Like, look, man, you brought this on yourself, not me. So, and I know, of course, I represent, the United States in that respect. Right then, I was the closest thing to him. So, it was, yeah, definitely, a surreal moment. And the time he's on the aircraft, from the time we land, I think it's less than 5 minutes, maybe 7 minutes. And we land at the location, and then we, I jump out, open up the door. The infantry guys come out, and then, his lawyer helps him out. And then he goes and, off he goes and gets in the truck, and wherever he went from there, and ended up in the court and doing his thing, and whatever the timeline was. So, I mean, and then it's just over, right? Once he's in the truck and gone, and then, we're back in the aircraft and we're getting ready to take off. We've got to go pick up. So this is also interesting. So we had to go pick up Chemical Ali, if you remember him. And, so he was held in a different location, and we had to bring him also to the courthouse. I think they all went to court at the same time whenever they did it. So we went and picked them up, which was, we didn't talk on the division net at that point because they were still focusing on Saddam, wherever he was in his route. But Chemical Ali was interesting in that, so he was hooded. He couldn't see. He was handcuffed, and his feet were shackled. And I think he had like on some cargo shorts, and like a Hawaiian t-shirt. Like, I'm not kidding. I'm like, what? Like, and he's chewing gum, like, man, I'm getting ready to go to the beach. I'm going to Hawaii right now and chilling. I'm like, dude, no, you're not. I don't know where you think you're going, but it ain't to Hawaii. And but we had to pick him up and a few of the other henchmen, and we put them on the aircraft. And because they were secured, I think there was only one guard with them, and we just put them in the aircraft. And I mean, they couldn't move or do anything, and we seat belted them in, and then flew over and dropped them off. But yeah, so I did that mission once, and it was like, it's really cool. Okay, I mean, to say I did that, I mean, right? Like, I had Saddam Hussein 2 feet from me and put him on the helicopters, on my helicopter, and I picked up Chemical Ali and put him on the helicopter and transported him. Meanwhile, if you remember, if you listened to any of my early shows in 2003, I was swimming in his pool in his main hometown palace in Tikrit, Iraq. I should have told him then, yeah, dude, I'm swimming in your pool. How you like that? And I peed in it. So there you go. But I obviously wasn't thinking about all that at the time. So, I have some connection to Saddam Hussein, I guess, and maybe my claim to fame. But as Blackhawk crew chiefs and the Chinook guys can tell you the same thing. I mean, there's a lot of missions like this that we do all over the world, and they're interesting, and we do some pretty crazy things sometimes. I've always said, Army aviation, specifically the lift guys with the Blackhawks and the Chinooks, best jobs in the Army, period, and best job in Army aviation. To be able to fly with the helicopter and go do missions like these, it's pretty exciting. And now, with all that being said, I didn't want to do it again. Meaning it's just too much. It is a pain in the ass. I will agree with the people that told me that ahead of time, but until you experience it, you just don't know. You don't realize it. And, I just, but you want to do it at least once. Right. And I'm glad I did it. I mean, but yeah, it was a pain in the ass, the prep to get up to it, the execution of it. And then it's really over in like 5 to 7 minutes, and he's off the aircraft anyway. So, but it was cool. So yes, Saddam Hussein flew on my helicopter, and we got him to where he needed to go safely. So we executed our mission flawlessly, as we did for the most part that whole year, which was, it was pretty amazing and incredible. So there you go. One of the most anticipated stories of Miller's Military Moments. Hey, I told you, I'm bringing you unfiltered stories from real military service members. And today that military service member was me. So bringing you that story of carrying Saddam Hussein in my helicopter, in Iraq was pretty crazy. So, speaking of stuff like that, like, hey, some of the future stories coming up, I went and picked up their Prime Minister Maliki that same year. And I got a funny story about that. It's hilarious. So I'm going to tell that in the future. My first big air assault is coming up. I'm going to share that story too. I know I shared one story of doing the daylight air assault with the Special Forces guys, but my first air assault was at night, and it was actually a really pretty big mission. And there's some interesting things going on with there. So lots of cool stories coming up. Hopefully you stay tuned. You stay just as excited as I am. I love sharing these stories. These are the stories that real Americans have done and are doing all over the world. And I'm just excited to share them with you. And, hopefully you guys are just as excited to hear them and to really hear what we do over there. It's not all just kicking indoors and, the infantry doing their thing. There's a lot of other things going on. And, so it's pretty cool. I'm really excited and glad I can share these stories with you. So, hey, thanks again for, checking in and hanging out with me. Jason Miller, Master Sergeant Retired, the host of Miller's Military Moments. I had a little brain cloud there. I was like, man, anyway, so thanks again for hanging out. Hopefully y'all enjoyed today's story and having a good time. The best place to find me again is millersmilitarymoments.com. Check out my website, everything on there. If you love the show, share it, tell other people about it. And hey, think hard about coming and supporting me over at Patreon. Less than a cup of coffee a month. You can join and help support my goals and aspirations of doing this full time and bringing you all great stories and other things from the military and other topics. So I would appreciate all that. And thank you so much for listening and tuning in and all the support that I've gotten so far to this point. I love all you guys, and I'm having such a great time doing this. Hope everybody's doing well out there. And, as always, hey, be kind, be compassionate, but be you. And until next time, peace.